Review of trigonometric functions. Hello everyone. Before we delve into the concept of inverse trigonometric functions, it is essential that we first revisit the fundamental trigonometric functions you studied in Class 11. Now, you might wonder why we are reviewing this. The reason is that to truly understand how to invert a function, we must first have a precise and clear understanding of the original function's behavior. Specifically, we need to focus on its domain and its range, as these two concepts will be the cornerstone of our discussion in the upcoming slides. Understanding domain and range. Now that we have established why it is necessary to revisit these concepts before moving into inverse functions, let us start by clarifying some fundamental terminology. First, let's define what a function actually is. In mathematics, a function is essentially a rule that assigns each input from one set to exactly one output in another set. You can think of it as a consistent process where every specific input you provide results in one unique output. Next, we have the concept of the domain. The domain is the set of all possible input values, which we usually represent with the letter x, for which the function is defined. In simpler terms, the domain consists of all the values that you are allowed to plug into the function without causing a mathematical error. Then we have the range. The range is the set of all possible output values that the function can produce. We typically represent these outputs as f of x or simply y, while the domain is what goes into the function. The range is the resulting set of values that come out. It is crucial that we have these two definitions clear, because in the upcoming slides, we will apply these exact principles to the 6 basic trigonometric functions to analyze their specific behaviors. The 6 basic trigonometric functions. Now that we have a clear understanding of the concepts of domain and range, let us move forward and review the 6 fundamental trigonometric functions. For the purpose of this review, we will consider these as real-valued functions of a real variable. In simpler terms, this means that both the input we provide to the function and the resulting output will be real numbers. This foundation is crucial, as it allows us to analyze their behavior precisely before we move on to the more complex topic of inverse functions. Sine and cosine functions. Now that we have a clear understanding of what domain and range are, let's apply those concepts to the 6 basic trigonometric functions. We will begin with the most fundamental ones, the sine and cosine functions. These are known as periodic functions because their values repeat at regular intervals, and they are defined for all real numbers. First, let's examine the sine function, denoted as sine of x. When we talk about its domain, we mean the possible input values. Since you can plug any angle into the sine function, the domain is the set of all real numbers. However, the output is different. The values of sine of x always oscillate or swing back and forth between -1 and +1. Therefore, the range is the closed interval from -1 to +1. Next, let's look at the cosine function. Denoted as cosine of x, you will notice that it behaves very similarly to the sine function. Its domain is also the set of all real numbers, meaning it is defined for any input x. Similarly, the output values of cosine of x also oscillate between -1 and +1. Thus, the range is also the closed interval from -1 to +1. It is important to remember these specific boundaries, as they will become very significant when we move toward the concept of inverse functions and visualize them through the Ferris wheel example coming up shortly. Tangent and cotangent functions. Now that we have covered the sine and cosine functions, let us move on to the tangent and cotangent functions. Unlike the previous two functions, these are defined as ratios. As you recall from your basic algebra, any fraction becomes undefined if the denominator equals 0. This is a crucial detail that directly affects the domain of these functions. Let us first examine the tangent function. By definition, tangent of x is equal to the sine of x divided by the cosine of x. Because of this structure, the function is undefined at any point where the cosine of x equals 0. This leads us to the domain. The domain of the tangent function includes all real numbers, except for the odd multiples of pi divided by 2, where n is any integer. Regarding the range, the values produced by the tangent function can be any real number. Therefore, the range is the set of all real numbers, extending from negative infinity to positive infinity. Similarly, let us look at the cotangent function. The cotangent of x is defined as the cosine of x divided by the sine of x. Consequently, this function is undefined whenever the sine of x equals 0. Because of this restriction, the domain of the cotangent function consists of all real numbers except for the integer multiples of pi, where n is an integer. Just like the tangent function, the range of the cotangent function is not bounded. It can be any real number from negative infinity to positive infinity. Please pay close attention to these undefined points in the domain, as we will encounter similar restrictions when we discuss the secant and cosecant functions in the next slide. Secant and cosecant functions. Now that we have discussed the tangent and cotangent functions, let's move on to the final pair of trigonometric functions. These are known as the reciprocal functions of cosine and sine, respectively. First, let's look at the secant function, denoted as secant of x by definition. Secant of x is equal to 1 divided by cosine of x because we cannot divide by 0. The secant function becomes undefined at any point where cosine of x equals 0. This leads us to its domain. The domain consists of all real numbers, except for the odd multiples of pi divided by 2. In mathematical terms, we exclude values like pi over 2, 3 pi over 2, and so on. As for the range, since the cosine function we reviewed earlier only oscillates between -1 and 1, its reciprocal behaves differently. The values of secant of x will always be either greater than or equal to 1, or less than or equal to -1. Therefore, the range is all real numbers excluding the open interval between -1 and 1. Similarly, we have the cosecant function, denoted as cosecant of x. This is defined as the reciprocal of sine, meaning it is 1 divided by sine of x. Consequently, it is undefined whenever sine of x equals 0. Because sine of x is 0 at every integer multiple of pi, the domain for cosecant is all real numbers except for n pi, where n is any integer. The range for the cosecant function is identical to that of the secant function. The output values will always be either greater than or equal to 1 or less than or equal to -1, meaning the range is all real numbers except for the interval between -1 and 1. Pay close attention to these range restrictions, as we will use a real-world example in the next slide to help you visualize how these boundaries work. Real-world application example, the Ferris wheel. Now that we have covered the technical definitions of the 6 trigonometric functions, let's use a real-world example to help you visualize the concepts of domain and range. Consider a Ferris wheel. Imagine you are a passenger on this wheel. As the wheel rotates, your height above the ground changes over time. Because this motion is periodic and circular, we can model your height using a sine or cosine function. Let's break this down step by step to see how this relates to the math we just discussed. First, let's identify the input, which represents our domain. In this scenario, the input variable is time, denoted by the letter t. Since the wheel can continue to spin indefinitely from the moment you start the ride, time can be any non-negative real number. Therefore, the domain is the interval from 0 to infinity. Next, let's look at the output, which represents our range. In this case, the output is your height, denoted by the letter h. Physically, you cannot go below the ground, and you cannot go higher than the very top of the wheel. This means your height is restricted to a specific set of values. To make this more concrete, let's look at a specific observation. Suppose the wheel has a radius of 20 meters, and the center of the wheel is 25 meters above the ground. In this case, your minimum height would be 5 meters and your maximum height would be 45 meters. Thus, your height, h, will fluctuate strictly between 5 meters and 45 meters. The conclusion here is very important for our understanding of trigonometry. Just as the height of the Ferris wheel is restricted to a specific interval regardless of how much time passes, the range of the sine of x and cosine of x functions is strictly restricted to the interval between -1 and 1. Regardless of the input angle x, keeping this restriction in mind will be crucial as we move toward the concept of inverse functions. Key takeaways. Now, let's synthesize everything we have discussed so far into a few key takeaways. First, looking back at our discussion on sine and cosine and our Ferris wheel example, these two functions have the simplest domains, consisting of all real numbers. Their range, however, is bounded, meaning the output values always stay within the closed interval from -1 to 1. Next, consider the tangent and cotangent functions. Unlike sine and cosine, these have unbounded ranges, meaning they can produce any real number as an output. However, they are not defined for every input. They have holes in their domains at specific points where the denominator of their ratio becomes 0. Then we have the secant and cosecant functions. As we noted earlier, these are the reciprocals of cosine and sine. Consequently, their ranges are the opposite of the bounded range we saw earlier. They exclude the open interval between -1 and 1. In other words, their values are always either greater than or equal to 1 or less than or equal to -1. Finally, it is crucial that you internalize these boundaries. Why? Because as we move toward our main goal of studying inverse trigonometric functions, you must remember a fundamental rule. The domain of an inverse function is the range of the original function, and the range of the inverse function is the domain of the original. Without a precise understanding of these sets, inverting the functions would be impossible. Now, before we proceed, let's look at some common mistakes students make when dealing with these concepts in the next slide. Common mistakes. Now, before we conclude this review and move forward to the study of inverse trigonometric functions, let us examine some common mistakes that students frequently make. First, there is the issue of confusing the domain with the range. It is quite common to swap these two concepts. To keep them straight, remember that the domain consists of the values you put into the function, which, in the context of trigonometry, is the angle, whereas the range is the resulting value that you get out of the function. Second, be careful not to ignore the undefined points. As we discussed in the previous slides, functions such as tangent of x and secant of x are undefined at points like pi/2 and 3π/2. Paying close attention to these gaps is crucial, because when we begin our next topic, we will have to restrict these domains to make the functions bijective, which is a necessary condition for a function to have an inverse. Finally, let us address a frequent error regarding the range of the secant of x and cosecant of x functions. A common misconception is that their range is between -1 and 1. In reality, it is the exact opposite. The range consists of all real numbers except for the open interval between -1 and 1. By keeping these common pitfalls in mind, you will have a much firmer foundation as we transition into the concept of inverse trigonometric functions.